So welcome back to DecoyNoise, where we're taking more Am I the Antagonist stories over to Decoy Court, because sometimes these cases are so absurd they demand a retrial. So today's featured story is, am I the antagonist for telling my sister she can F off if she thinks my marriage is problematic? So if you are a fan of common sense and civility, make sure you subscribe down below and let me know in the comment section that you have joined the Decoy Koi Pond, because we are trying to make a better internet reality commentary situation, because you can't find that anywhere else on the internet. So make sure you join down below, but let's go ahead and get to that story right now. So OP wrote, apparently she felt this way for a while, but never told me or tried to talk about it until she blew up recently. So basically, I write software for a subsidiary of a big-ish West Coast software company. Pays great, same wages they pay their West Coast employees, but in the Midwest office. So my wife doesn't need to have a job. Instead, she volunteers roughly 16 hours a week at the local pet shelter. She's also a Brazilian immigrant. Go ahead and make the joke about the tech nerd marrying an immigrant that becomes a housewife. That got us into this pickle. My sister's convinced that I actively sought out an immigrant, using money to coerce her to marry her because she'd be more submissive, easier to control into a housewife, that won't challenge me out of fear of going destitute. But in reality, my wife is one of the most strong-willed women I've met. That's part of what made me attracted to her in the first place. And I honestly don't know if housewife is even the right word to describe my wife, given she basically works part-time at the animal shelter, but for free because we can afford it. If she was getting paid to do the same volunteer work she already is, she wouldn't be labeled as a housewife, like sis is trying to push on her now. She does do about 2/3 of the housework because she's home a lot more. I do a bulk of the cooking though, since frankly, I'm better at it and it benefits us both if I do more. Recently, my mom had to have surgery. Since dad already passed away a few years ago, mom lives alone now. My wife decided she was going to go to mom's house every day and help out how she could and make sure she was okay. I go at least every other day after work to help too. Sister only goes to see mom on the weekends, but she does work more hours than I do, so meh, she's got to take care of herself too. A couple of days ago, I get a call from sis, and she starts screaming at me as soon as I answered, saying how she knew I was always had problematic views on women and marriage, but she wasn't going to stay quiet any longer now that she thinks I'm using them to gain mom's favor. Going on about how she's disappointed in me, feels sorry for my wife, and whatever kids we have, and how she can't believe her own brother turned into another sexist tech bro. I told her I disagreed and felt my marriage was a fairly equal partnership, but if she was intent on crap talking, she could F off and stay out of our lives then. I haven't heard from her since then. My mom and wife are on my side, but a few of my friends said I vented to say she had a point. I don't know. Am I the antagonist? So we take the case and we rush it over to Decoy Court to give him a second trial, because you know the internet's going to have a very particular response to this. So I'd go to say right now that yes, you do fall into that 90-day fiance, I guess that archetype where you're just this rich guy. I'm guessing he's from the first world, so he just has all this money. He goes to find an immigrant that may be afraid of becoming homeless, going back to her home country, and whatever the crap show that 90 Day Fiance is. But this guy seems to be in a situation where it's like, yeah, he'd like her to work, but she doesn't need to. He makes all this money. She's strong-willed. And whatever the case may be with this situation, it sounds to me that the sister is just jealous that this other girl, the Brazilian wife, or why we even gotta call her Brazilian wife, just OP's wife. OP's wife lives a much better life, much more comfortable life than the sister, and also thinks that they may be taking in on maybe like the inheritances, which I'm starting to get at, where it's like, oh yeah, you're gaining favor with mom with your new your pretty housewife, so I'm getting cut out of this, because no one ever would take offense to someone living their best life unless they thought that it was some direct attack or indirect attack on the sister. So I'm guessing that she has a lot of things in her mind that aren't so great, and she's just projecting them on OP. So yes, I don't think that OP, you're not the antagonist over here. It seems like you guys are having a good marriage. You have a good split. It's like, I mean, it might be one of those traditional homes where, she's a homemaker, he's the breadwinner, but I don't see any other sense of, bad behavior on OP's part. Like, whatever, if he went to Brazil and found her and brought her over, kind of like in this 90-day fiance situation, maybe that would be the situation, but I just don't see that here. So I'm gonna go ahead and say this, sister, you're the antagonist for incepting that idea of he's taking advantage of somebody, because it doesn't seem that's a picture, maybe because we're looking on it from the outside in, and then OP's not going to try to paint himself in a negative light, so he's not including those facts in this short story posted on Reddit. So maybe they can change our mind. That's my opinion right there. So let's go ahead and get to those top comments as the prosecution to see what's really going on. So the top comment is, not the antagonist, your sister needs to chill. If you and your wife are both happy and you don't exhibit sexist or chauvinistic views against her or other women, then what leg can your sister possibly be standing on? Your wife is absolutely allowed to be a housewife if she's happy that way. The fact that many women are shamed for this shocks me, considering true feminism is supporting women is whatever life they choose. Glad to hear your wife is able to spend time volunteering at something she loves. I'm sure the shelter appreciates her time and help, especially since that means they can spend more money on the animals in their care. Side note, not to stereotype, but a Brazilian woman being submissive? LOL, not sure that word is in the Brazilian handbook. Laughing emoji. So, and that's the thing is, this just seems like all projection on the sister's behalf, because it doesn't seem to be saying that that he's doing anything wrong. It just seems that she may be jealous of the situation. So one more top comment, which is, who is saying she has a point anyway? She called you screaming because your wife has been helping your mom? Does your sister have emotional issues? Your marriage sounds fine. If you and your wife agree on how you want to live your life, everyone else can kick rocks. And that's this thing, like, she feels like she's encroaching on her territory, like, oh no, only family can take care of mom, and since she can't be there, it makes her look bad. It's like, hey, how about we just be happy that we have a happy life? Like, no one seems to be having a bad time. There are people with enough, with the finances that can help mom, that can go there and take care of her. This seems like a whole projection situation where she wouldn't even be yelling at her if she had an equally paying job with an equally, happy marriage with her husband or whatever. It just seems like there's a lot of projection there. So we've seen the prosecution. Let's look at the defense over in the controversial section, because the top comment is a negative 20 point thing, saying, why did you even feel the need to post this here? You already know you're not the antagonist. And that's the thing is, you don't know what the friends are saying. You don't know what the relationship between OP and the sister are. What if OP and the sister have a really cool relationship and they're always friends and everything's always been great, and she had been secretly harboring those feelings towards OP the entire time? So he's like, wait, maybe I shouldn't have gone so hard on my sister because we're friends and everything, and I haven't heard from my sister in like 2 weeks, so maybe this is a problem here. So I could see why that's there, right? Why the inkling of doubt would be. So let's go ahead and read one more top controversial comment saying, not the antagonist, obviously. Your marriage isn't any of her business. As a fellow immigrant, but in the UK, I was in a similar situation, and this kind of feminist attitude is really annoying and offensive. Her views are also a bit racist in my opinion. Would she feel the same way if your wife was white and American? What difference does it make because she's Brazilian? Why is she placing some stereotype on an immigrant housewife? Your sister is extremely closed-minded and needs to chill the F out. If your marriage works for you and your wife, who cares what anyone else thinks? And that's what I also kind of think about the whole, there's a lot of social justice things happening in the world. We're not going to go into that because DecoyNoise is just about having fun and lighthearted things. But oftentimes when you have a person that wants to say like, oh, I'm trying to protect this, Brazilian housewife, it actually kind of shows their inherent racism themselves. Like, why does her being Brazilian have to do with anything at all? Unless you're stereotyping at all, unless you're making some sort of, some unprovoked idea on them, then there shouldn't be a problem. Maybe there's something we're not seeing in the story because we're just getting OP side of it, but we're still going to say in Decoy Court, he's not the antagonist. His sister is just poking her nose where it doesn't belong, and that's where I rest my case on that. So let's go ahead and go to the next story, which is, am I the antagonist for refusing to take in my biological child and sending him to foster care? So it's gonna be, that's not the right button. So it's gonna, those aren't the right buttons at all. So let's go ahead and get to the story right now. So OP wrote, when I was in college, I got pregnant with my now husband's child. We weren't ready for a child, so we gave him up for adoption at birth to a lovely older couple that seemed to be an older version of us. We kept it as an open adoption and are not embarrassed about it. Fast forward 3 years, and we had graduated college and were about to get married. The adopted parents informed us that the child had been diagnosed with autism. We had let them at the wedding and everything seemed fine. Maybe he was delayed, but nothing serious. The adopted parents started to pull away from us after we got married. Visits and letters were decreased by their choice. 3 years after that, my husband and I had a child of our own, and my husband got in an accident that gave him severe brain damage. My husband went from being an engineer to having the mental age of an 8 or 9-year-old. He isn't able to remember things well and cannot work. While he can use the bathroom on his own and physically do his own hygiene, he needs to be reminded. In many ways, he's my second child. He can't be on disability unless we get divorced, which would cause more problems than it would solve. Insurance, power of attorney, etc. So I am the sole supporter of the household. The adoptive mother reached out to us this year and is begging for help. The adoptive father died of a heart attack, and she's scared that she will die and her son will be all alone. Nobody in the adoptive extended family will take him because of his extensive needs. His autism is apparently very severe. He can't speak or use the bathroom and mostly communicates by screaming. He has very expensive medications and therapies. He really needs a stay-at-home parent because of his often sent home from school early. I in no way can take this kid in. I'm already essentially a single parent to 2 kids. I have no time or money to pile this kid's needs on top. I have to work long hours and can't risk my job with constant absences. I declined, and now she's constantly sobbing to me about how everyone rejects her son, and when she dies, he'll be thrown out like garbage because even his birth mother doesn't want him. I really can't do it. Am I the antagonist? And edit, it's been 8 years since the accident. The kid is now 14. So taking this very rough case over to Decoy Court, and I kind of instantly regret using the funny imagery with this post, but this is kind of like another story we covered where somebody gave up a child to the care of somebody else, and now they can't take care of him anymore, and they want to give him back, and it's like, stop. They need to stop thinking of the kid as some sort of property, or as like a trading card or a pet or something. It's a child. Even though he has the autism, I imagine they're still gonna know if like mom and dad deserted him. Very unfortunate situation. The father passed away. The child has, probably one of the harder cases of autism, so they need constant care. So you understand why they would want to try to give him up. But this to me seems that the adoptive mother is just venting their frustration and their sadness and their grief onto OP, saying, not even the biological mom wants her child. Yes, that sentence sounds bad, but it's not the case. It's like, they have a new mom. The OP, they wanted an open adoption, but that wasn't they never planned on taking the child back. They officially gave up their rights. It's not their kid anymore. And I also feel bad for OP because, they have 2 children to take care of. It was an accident. They have their own kid. And now the husband can no longer be a peer, can no longer be someone that's going to grow old with her. And, they're going to live their life the way that they originally intended. It's just a tragedy overall. So I'm going to go ahead and say that there's no antagonist here because not even the adoptive mother. You don't blame her because she's just going through a tough time. Even though she's kind of guilt-tripping OP, it doesn't seem that it's like a malicious thing. It's just a sad thing where like, who else can she turn to? It's just sadness everywhere. Sadness. So let's go ahead and read the top comment right now just to see what everybody else is saying. So top comment with stars and everything saying, "Oh honey, you are no way the a-hole in this situation. You have been dealt a really tough hand and you are doing everything you can with the resources you have. Perhaps advise the adoptive mother to reach out to social services to discuss future plans for her son. It sounds like a specialized facility might best meet his future needs. Knowing you will visit him in a specialist unit in future years might give her a little comfort. Stay strong, sending you good vibes and virtual hugs if you want them." So, I mean, it's positive right there. Next reply, not the antagonist. Also, is his mother sick or just having those I can go at any moment phase due to the heart attack? You already chose once that you cannot take on that child. That's why you put him up for adoption to begin with. Even if the reasoning is different now, you can still not take that child, and it isn't fair to her, his mother, and it's not fair for her to ask you to take in the kid. So understandably, I don't think anybody's going to go too hard on anybody in this situation because it's just tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. You grew up in your entire life thinking that you'll have this Disney movie-esque lifestyle, and then when real life hits, you're like, wow, this is how it's going to be. You don't get to ride off into the sunset on a pony with your significant other. It's just sad, gets worse, more sad, and more depressing, and then it ends. I know this is getting very sad for what the DecoyNoise podcast is supposed to be, so let's go ahead and read the top controversial comment. Maybe they'll be harder on them. They're saying, the way OP refers to her child as this kid makes me feel so sad. And that's the thing is, it's not her child anymore. She gave the child up, this kid. I mean, if my biological mother referred to me as just some kid, some person, yes, I would be some kid to them because I'm a stranger. Yes, she gave birth to me, and there's this idea of your biological children, your kids, and your family and everything. But honestly, she has nothing to do with me. She gave birth to me, but there's no connection whatsoever. We're strangers. Yes, if I saw her on the street and I didn't know it was my mother, she would just be someone walking by. If someone introduced her to me as my mother, I'd be like, okay, cool, she gave birth to me, but there's nothing like my adoptive parents. They're my parents. My biological mother, she can refer to me as this kid, and I honestly, there would be no hard feelings to it because the the people that raise you are like your parents, and this is idealism. I feel like this comment right here. So that's just my particular opinion, but I feel like since I'm closer to that situation, I have a more valid opinion, but maybe I'm wrong. But let's go ahead and shoot over to the last story of the day, which is, am I the antagonist for telling my sister that literally anyone could get knocked up? So some family pettiness, that's what we're in here for. So OP says, I'm a medical resident with no kids. My sister is a mom with no jobs. I don't judge women who stay home with their kids, but kids simply are not for me, and it would drive me crazy to live with them. My sister, on the other hand, has a son, and to be fair to her, he's a great kid who's really smart and bright. However, he is her whole identity. She's constantly bragging about her son, and her only personality these days is about being a boy mom. I was in town, so I joined my sister at dinner at our parents' house. My aunt is also there, nephew was crashed upstairs, and my parents were telling her how proud they were of my residency placement, a very competitive field, difficult to get into. My aunt made an offhand comment about and asked my sister if she's going back to school. My sister said, no, we all have our talents. OP can study all day, but she can never handle being a mother with fertility issues. She would find this as difficult as I would find med school. Okay. I'm paraphrasing, but you get this point. I was annoyed because my sister has a sense of superiority around being a mother while I'm not one. She basically was saying I'd be a bad mother if I was one, and that 8 years I spent in heck devoid of free time is nothing compared to having unprotected adult relations and facing the consequences. So I said something crappy back. I essentially said, literally anyone can get knocked up, and being a good mom is literally the bare minimum. It seems like you don't realize how hard I effing worked. My sister left the table, aunt left early. My parents are pretty upset that my sister and I ruined dinner. However, I put up with her looking down on me for not being a stepford wife for years. Am I the antagonist? Edit. I absolutely did not mean to make a dig at my sister's fertility issues. I wasn't thinking that in the mindset at all, and didn't realize that it could be taken that way. I really just wanted to tell her that I don't think our jobs have equal difficulty. Edit 2. Thanks you guys for seriously helping me to make the connection and understanding why my words were so hurtful. I didn't even realize that I made a dig at her infertility, and I've been in bed crying and reflecting because I feel like the mega antagonist. Right now I'm formulating an apology and I'm going to talk to her. So rushing this case over to Decoy Court, because this is more my wheelhouse over here, is it doesn't seem like that original comment where they said, oh, hey, the sister said, we have our talents, OP can study, but she couldn't handle being a mom, and she would find it as difficult as med school, which says that, hey, look, OP likes studying, hates kids. The sister likes kids, but would hate studying. I think that they just drew an equivalency, and it took someone with kind of I don't want to say low self-esteem, but kind of a chip on her shoulder. OP had to be a situation where they're like, oh, are you talking trash? You talking trash? Are you trying to offend me right now? Well, here, let me throw something. You said, hey, sister says, we both have our strengths. She likes this, I like that. And sister said, you have fertility issues. You could never be a doctor. How dare you? Oh, man. It was just this whole overreaction. So I'm going to go ahead and say in a very light way that everyone sucks here because the sister didn't even need to bring in the whole med school thing. She couldn't handle being a mom, but OP definitely didn't need to start hurling those, lobbing those insults of oh yeah, well you could never be a doctor and you need to stop belittling me. That seems like they're just having a family fight. And the parents didn't say, the sister did anything wrong or OP did anything wrong. They just said, you guys ruined family dinner. And that's probably a fair assessment. So let's go ahead and read the top comment right now in the prosecution, where they also quoted the idea that they talked about, it wasn't a big insulted. And they said, what backhanded snide BS, not the antagonist. Women with fertility issues act like this, giving all others a bad name. And I don't take that from this whole, this is BS. She's using her fertility issues as a way to insult you. I don't know. It just seems that they said, hey, both of us wouldn't like each other's life. She likes being a stay-at-home mom. What's wrong with that? I don't know. But let's go ahead and read the next reply saying, everyone sucks here. You're both dismissive and jealous of one another, and dinner with y'all sounds unpleasant. And that makes sense. They both kind of said hey, we don't want to be here. You guys are just sisters. You're going to fight, and that's okay. It's not the biggest problem in the world where they're going to be bickering at each other, because that's just what family does. But just the simple fact that, yeah, they kind of ruined dinner. Why don't they just keep those thoughts to themselves? Obviously, won't start none, won't be none. So the sister brought it up in the beginning, so it's more her fault. But I mean, I think everybody still kind of sucks here. But let's go ahead and see the next reply saying, hey, not the antagonist. Anyone can get knocked up. Not anyone can be a doctor. But the reply was, not anyone can be a brilliant mom. And I think these are all fair assessments, but it is one of those things where they're both taking digs at each other, where why can't this just be something where they're just friendly with each other, nice and friends and just chill about everything? Why does it have to be this insulting moment where they're trying to take opportunities to make dinner suck? That's me. I'm still saying that everybody sucks here. I wish that they could be nicer when they are meaner, but that's the old that's a synopsis of Am I the Antagonist and the end of it. But I mean, as we kind of close today's episode, I just want to say I do appreciate everybody giving me feedback and watching all the content. But also, if you aren't subscribed, make sure you let us know in the Decoy Koi. Or if you subscribed a long time ago, go to the Decoy Koi pond in the comment section and let us all know that you decided to join us so we can all kind of start the conversation. But also, if you really, really want to support me right now, share it with somebody. Drop it on a Facebook link, drop it on your Discord link. Just let everybody know that there is a podcast, Am I the Antagonist Reddit read, where we just kind of have discussions on, you know, who can be nice, who's being unreasonable, and how far Reddit has gone down the rabbit hole of just absurdity, in my opinion. But as always, if you don't want to do all that, that's okay. You can just go ahead and watch the next episode of DecoyNoise coming up next. I'll put the link over there, but also like, share, follow, whatever, you know how it is. Go, look, we're done here. There's nothing else popping up.